Hello guys, welcome to the CSS crash course. In this video, we'll look at how to format text in CSS. My name is Kafui and welcome to my channel mods.dev. Please subscribe, like and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I release a content on the channel. With that said, let's dive in. In CSS, you can format text in various ways using different properties. So in this video, we'll look at some commonly used CSS text formatting properties. So in my text editor, I have my index.html file and my style.css file, which I have linked in my HTML document using the link tag. In my body, I have this h1 element here. I'll go ahead and define a paragraph element and use lorem to generate 20 random words and save. And on the h1 here, I'll add a class of title, and then on the paragraph, I'll add a class of, let's say, text and save. So in HTML, we can add multiple class names. So on this h1 here, I can write space and then add another class that I want. Let's say I can add a class of, let's say, leading, or let me just say text dash lg. So this can be another class name that I can select in my CSS and then add some CSS styles to it. So you can add a lot of CSS class names, by when you are using the ID property or the ID attribute, the ID must be what? Unique. So maybe this should be like, let's say, topic. I can add an ID like this topic, and that is all. But when we are working with classes, we can add different class names by separating them with what? Spaces. So you should take note of that. So I'll just go ahead and then do away with this. Let's just work with just the title and then the text class names. Now in my style.css file, I'll select the h1 using the class name, and then in curly bracket I put in my CSS styles. So the CSS properties we'll look at are, the first one we'll look at is called the font family property. So font family. The font family property specifies the font for a text. So you can see that VS Code is giving us auto completion of some fonts that are on my machine. So these are from fonts that are on my machine. So I can click on, let me just click on this one, and when I save, you see that the font type of this h1 has changed to the font that I've specified here. So this is how we can change the font of what? A text. And mostly whenever you are building your website, you end up using fonts from online. So you can go to Google Fonts here. So this is Google Fonts. We have a lot of fonts here that you can choose from. So let's see how we can include a font that is not on our system. So let's say when you are building your website, the fonts that you have on your computer or that you write should be a font that whenever anybody visits your website, the person will be able to access that font you have used on your computer. So mostly we use online fonts in building our website, or we can use our own custom fonts and then include it in our files. But in this video, I'll show you how you can include a font from Google Fonts. So just go ahead and search for Google Fonts and come to this website and then search for the Roboto font. So this is it. So I'll just go ahead and then click on it here, and let's wait for it to load. So this is the Roboto fonts, and it has a lot of font weights, so different weights here. So I'll just go ahead and then select the regular 400, and then medium 500, and then bold 700. So I'll just select these font weights, and then on this button here at the top here, you can click it to view the font that you have selected. So we can select more than one font here and then include it, but I'll just select the Roboto here, and then when you click on that button, there you have this window here. So this is where you can, so you have to copy these links here to and then include it in your HTML document. So I'll just click there, I'll just copy it from here and then come to my HTML document here and then include it in my head tag. So I'll just go above my CSS link file where I have linked my CSS file, then I'll paste it there and save, and then by so doing nothing happens. So when we go nothing happens. So one thing we have to do is we have to copy the font family declaration. So I'll just copy it and then come to my CSS file. I'll comment this one out and then paste this one here and save. So when we go back to our website, you see that the font has changed to this Roboto font here. So we can inspect it by just right click on this text and click and go to inspect. So it will open what you call the dev tools here, and you see that in my dev tools, let me just enlarge it for you here. In my dev tools here, you can see that the font family here is what? The Roboto Sans Serif font that you got from Google Fonts. So this is how you can include an online font in your website. So the next CSS or text property we'll look at is the font size. So the font size, let me just go ahead and write it, font size. So you can see that when I start writing the name of the property, VS Code gives us what? Auto completion. So let me do that again for you. So I'll just start writing font, then size. Then you see that it has given me all these suggestions. So I'll just press enter for auto completion. The font size is used to set the size of a text. So over here, you can see that VS Code is giving us some suggestions here, but I will not use that. I'll just write, let's say 40 pixels and then save. So by so doing, the size of this text increases to what? 40 pixels. So you can use, we'll look at this CSS units later in subsequent video. The next text property we'll look at is the font weight. So I'll just go ahead and write font and then start writing weight and then press enter for auto completion. So we can select any of these weight. Now because we are using this online font, when selecting the font, we just included only the 400, the 500 and then the 700 fonts font weight. So we can write for the weight. When you want to increase the thickness, we can write 700 and save, and you see that it is now of the weight of 700, or we can decrease it to, let's say, 400. When I do that and save, the font weight is now very thin. So I'll just put it in the middle of 500 and then save, or let's say 700 is okay and save, and it becomes thicker. The next property we'll look at is the font style. The font style property sets the style of the font. So I'll just write font and then start writing style, and then we can choose from italic, normal, oblique. So I'll just choose italic here and then save, and then you see that now this font, this H1 element is now italicized. The next property we'll look at is the color property. The color property sets the color of a text. So I'll just go ahead and write color, and then we can select these colors here, among these colors here, or we can specify our own color. So I'll just go ahead and select this brown color and save. Good. So when I hover over this color, we have this color picker here in VS Code that we can select any color of our choice. So there are various ways we can specify the color of a text, or we can work with color in CSS by writing the color name, in this example brown, or we can choose. So I can change this using what we call the RGB, which stands for red, green, blue. So when I do that and save, the color is still the same. And then we can use what we call the RGBA, which is the red, green, blue, alpha. The alpha channel stands for the opacity, so I can work with it here. So that when I do that and save, the opacity is what? It ranges from 0 to 1. So when it goes to 0, it will become very what? Light. So when I change it to 0, now we cannot see the text. But when I begin to increase it to, let's say, approaching 1, now it is what? Very, very transparent. I'll bring it to the middle. It is, you see that it is now light. So we can use the RGBA color value, or we can use, when I change this one again, we can use the hexadecimal color code as well. And when I change it again, we can use what we call the HSL, which stands for hue saturation lightness, and then the hue saturation lightness alpha channel, we can work with that as well. So it depends on what you want. Mostly you end up using, you can use the color name, or which we use initially here, called brown, or you can, let me just write that properly and save, or I'll just copy this one down and then change it to, let's say, the RGB value here, or the hex value here, and then select that one and then save. Is the same thing. Let me just comment this one out. So these are the various ways we can work with what color. And then this one is what we refer to as what the hexadecimal color code. Now the next property we'll talk about is the text align property. The text align property is used to align a text within the container. So I'll just write text align here, and you see that we have this auto completion, so we have center. So I'll just select center here and save. Now our text is now aligned to the center. When I go ahead, auto completion, we have end, justify, left, right, start. Depending on what you want, I'll just select what center and then keep it there. The next one we'll talk about is the text decoration property. The text decoration property adds decoration to a text. So I'll just go ahead and write text, then decoration. So we can choose from the dash, the dotted, line through, underline. I'll just select underline and save. So you see that our text is now what underline. The next one we'll talk about is the line height, and this one I'll select the paragraph element, and then we'll look at that, because this one has a lot of what text, so that we can look at the line height property properly. So I'll just increase the font size a bit to, let's say, 30 pixels. Okay, I am zoomed in. Let me zoom out a bit. Good. So we can use the line height property to set the height of a line of what a text. So I'll just write line height and write, let's say, 2 pixels, and then save. So you see that the line height property, the height of what each of the line is now affected. So sorry, you don't have to put in what a unit, so you can just write a value. So let's say when I write 1, you see that the line height is there. When I increase it to 2, there is what more space between what the individual lines, so you don't have to write a unit for it. Now the next one we'll talk about is the letter spacing property. So I'll just go ahead and write letter spacing, and then let's say 2 pixels, and then when I do that and save, it adjusts the space between what the characters. So it increases the space between the characters. When I increase it to, let's say, 5 pixels and save, you see that there are more spaces between the individual characters. So I'll just bring it back to, let's say, 1 pixels. So this normally confuses me a lot between the line height and then the letter spacing, whether to bring a unit or not. So mostly the line height we don't bring a unit, but the letter spacing property we have to add a unit to it. Then finally we'll talk about the text transform property, which transforms the text to uppercase, lowercase, or capitalize. So I'll just go ahead and then write text transform. So we can choose I'll just choose the capitalize here and save. Now our text is now capitalized. So there are other CSS text formatting properties that we didn't talk about. These are just few that we have looked at. That's all for this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section for discussion. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I release a content on the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.